All right, welcome back to another Epidose of these crazy fools that just keep eating meat and can't shut up about it. Today, we're going to talk about some issues having to do a little bit of sciencey science, but we're going to cover the reasons why we eat meat and we believe we're fueled by fat and not carbohydrates and why that's important. So we're going to talk about our performance on a meat-based diet fueled with fat, and we're going to touch on the Randle cycle. So anyways, I would just like to hear from Joe on how he does cycling on fat. And I want to hear about Ray. Ray, what's the performance like at the gym when you're throwing down some jiu-jitsu and some karate? And then let's get to the ultimate gym rat, Justin, and see how he does next. So take it away, Joe. Let us know what your performance difference has been like on carnivore.
Night and day, pretty much. I mean, it's incredible. Getting older, you're meant to be slowing down, but I seem to be, smashing up PRs. I haven't really done as much cycling this year as previous years due to multiple factors, but the performance is still there. I can do a long ride without any food. It's no problem at all. I'm so fat adapted that it's easy for me. But then, you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, but you don't have that explosive power." But I do. I've still got that explosive power. I train with a power meter, so I can actually see the amount of watts that I'm able to push out, and and it's still there. And I can maintain a sprint for a longer duration compared to before. So
Yeah,
definitely improve.
I think those people who say they're missing the explosiveness just haven't really gotten used to metabolizing the fat and replenishing their glycogen naturally without eating carbohydrates. But clearly, people whose bodies have adapted, they don't seem to have any problem bouncing back. They don't seem to have any issue with explosiveness. In fact, they seem to have more explosiveness. How about you,
Yeah.
Ray? What have you noticed?
Yeah, total explosiveness. I can go on and on and on and on. So now, early on, during the transition, that was kind of it was kind of one day I would feel great, I'd have all this energy. The next day I'd feel kind of worn out. After 3 months, I would say everything steadied out. And I have this constant stream of energy. Like I'm not getting my energy from food anymore. It's like it's tapping into somewhere else. Um, and I mean, literally, I've done a 40. I think I was 42-hour fasted. I did a 7-hour workout. It was 6 hours for jujitsu and 1 hour for Orange Theory HIIT. And man, I was just like, and we're talking about a 30-minute roll at the end. This is pretty straining for a lot of the people that's there just doing the jujitsu. But I did the workout and all that kind of stuff, and I felt great, and I was fasting. So it's a total game changer, considering that on carbs, if I went 3 hours, not even working out, just doing whatever, I'd be totally non-functioning. I mean, I'd probably have to pass out or sleep somewhere, or actually literally pass out. I'd get cold sweats, shaky. So it's a game changer.
Yeah, can I just add to that? I found that when I was high carb, I would drink a lot more. I would cramp up more often. I found that my recovery in between sets was a little bit, was not nowhere near as fast as it is now. I mean, being, low fat, low carb, high fat. My recovery in between sets is just, it's incredible, and I can maintain the same intensity, over many intervals, no problem at all.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I think it's important to make that distinction, because if you're used to eating carbohydrates, you might need those carbs to replenish your glycogen stores, or, keep your blood sugar up, because your blood sugar is going up and down. But once you get off the carbohydrates and you're just on a low carb diet, a keto diet, a carnivore diet, your body starts making all the sugar you need. It replenishes those glycogen stores, and it replenishes the glucose you need, because you do need some glucose for cells in your body. But your body regulates that all by itself, making that sugar all by itself, and then you don't have to worry about eating carbohydrates that are spiking your blood sugar, spiking your insulin, and so on and so forth.
What's amazing is how quickly it can do it, is the part that I'm shocked at. Because I'm a steady energy, and I know, when I'm fasted, I don't have this glucose stores. So it must be doing it, I would think, on demand, but I don't know that for a fact, which is amazing, right?
Yeah, it clearly seems to be doing it on demand. It's sugar on demand as it's needed, sugar as needed. So we don't seem to experience this gluconeogenesis run amok that people worry about when they eat too much protein.
Right.
Doesn't seem to happen. I mean, I have some activities I like to do around the house just for exercise. Justin will tell you, I've got a 20-pound sledgehammer, which you've never seen a 20-pound sledgehammer. It's ridiculously large.
It's Thor's hammer.
And I've got a giant,
I like that.
got a giant tractor tire in the backyard. It's about 4 feet tall, and I love hammering on that thing. I love flipping that thing across the yard.
Don't you take it for a walk from time to time down the street?
I have walked it down the street and stuff like that. And I do that, and it's exhausting, and I'm recovered in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm back to normal. Yeah.
But even your breathing's, I noticed my breathing's actually better as well. So, it's my like you can do an effort going up a hill, and then all of a sudden you just want to have that steady pace. It's like, your lungs aren't burning like they used to. It's like you can take in more oxygen.
Yeah, well, that study we heard about the other day, they were talking about how people on high carb diets have a harder time expelling the carbon dioxide. They have a harder time getting the carbon dioxide out of their bodies. And so that's one of the advantages as well. So it keeps that ratio of oxygen to CO2 at a better level, because it's exiting your body faster as you're metabolizing.
Which would explain the increased recovery rate.
Yeah, and as a big person, I definitely find myself not out of breath hardly ever. And that was a big limiter my whole life from the time I was a little
All the same. Always out of breath.
Running the bases, playing baseball, and just dying for air, even when I was a little kid, and then trying to catch up afterward, bent over their hands on their knees, huffing and puffing, trying to get enough air in. And I don't do that anymore. And I'm 49 years old now. You'd think it would be getting worse.
Worse, right. Oh, no, it was getting worse for me.
It was. It ain't anymore, right?
Right, not anymore, exactly.
So, Justin, tell us what you've noticed.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of hard for me to compare, just because I was exercise intolerant for close to a decade, with the migraines. But before then, I did run cross country and track in high school. I haven't really done much running, but, recently on the camping trip up to Mount Shasta, if someone were to tell me, hey, you want to get up at 6 a.m. and go do a 7-mile hike like a year ago or a year and a half ago, I would have been like, fuck you. Like, no, I don't want to. But now, I was just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go do a 7-mile hike, and it's just great to just do something like that. I love being outdoors now. I do hit the gym now, and I'm kind of bouncing around the gym from one activity to the next. And I don't seem to really need, the entire time at the gym, I'm not slowing down. I probably take 10 minutes of break time the entire time I'm at the gym. If you added all of it up. So no, it's definitely incredible. And at home, I can't find enough things to do. Sometimes I get, laundry done, dishes done, cook steaks for the next day, especially under quarantine. It's just kind of just feel like I what do I do? Just take a nap? Like, just, I kind of run out of things to do sometimes. And it's like, you still have energy. And I have to wear myself out. I'm like a dog in that I have to give myself a walk, or I have to go to the gym, or I have to go to like go on a hike. Otherwise I can't sleep. Like, I legitimately still have too much energy, even though I'm up at like 7:20, 8 o'clock at the latest, which I used to sleep in until 10 and still wake up feeling groggy. Up the entire day, busy, usually don't slow down, you know, and then it's like 11 and like I still feel like I could go. And it's just, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. It's incredible though. I love it.
Yep. So, does anybody want to get us started on what they understand about the Randle cycle? I've got a clip to play with our buddy Bart discussing it with our other buddy Sean Baker. So,
Yeah, Bart, you're taking a break from YouTube, but YouTube is not taking a break from you.
yes, we shall be dragging Bart K in here at some point. Yeah, for sure. And maybe we'll get Sean on soon too.
I think we should start with the clip. Let's just do the clip.
You guys want to do the clip, or you want to make some comments?
There you go.
I think we should play the clip, and then we can comment on it afterward.
You sure?
Let me get it. Let me get it all fired up here. Let me know when you guys see it.
Yep.
I see it.
Okay, I'm gonna hit play.
Playing things like the Randle cycle. Can you go through that real quick? The Randle cycle for people.
Yeah. Look, the simplest way to explain the Randle cycle to people is this: if you consume the exact number of calories in effect that you are actually using on a day-by-day basis in effect, then the makeup of those calories, in terms of the macronutrient profile, is not important with respect to the Randle cycle. It's fine. The Randle cycle only kicks in and becomes a problem for people if your effective caloric intake exceeds your actual expenditure. In other words, you have some energy overplus in the form of energy substrates in your blood. What happens then is if you have a mixture of carbohydrates and fats together, which is reasonably even, the carbohydrates and fats will basically cross-compete with each other and lock each other out of exiting the blood and entering the cells. So those cells become locked, if you like. And the reason the cells are locked is because the cells are completely replete with a store of energy, which will be in the form of some carbohydrate and some lipid within the cell. And so, of course, the cell needs no further energy, so it doesn't need to import anything from the blood. And in fact, if it was going to import more sugar from the blood, that would be toxic to the cell and cause glycation and oxidation issues and all that kind of stuff. So your cell avoids that by simply closing that door. No thanks, don't need any more energy. What happens then is that because you've got these substrates in your blood, they will go to the liver, and the liver will say, okay, this level is not dropping, this is not needed, so I'm going to change this into triglyceride, and the sugar that is, and we'll store that as such. Now you say, well, that makes sense. That's perfectly fine, isn't it? Until you realize that the thing that determines fat storage is actually acute inflammation. That's the switch that turns your metabolism from catabolic to anabolic. Fat usage versus fat storage. So an acute bout of eating, which would replete you with energy more than what your cells need, your cells obviously react sensibly. They lock themselves out. We don't need any more energy right now. The liver senses that and starts storing it. But to do that, acute inflammation must occur. And that's not a problem if you do it once. But if you do it 3, 4, 5 times a day, every day of the week, now you've got chronic systemic inflammation because your nutritional profile is causing that inflammation to occur. chronic systemic inflammation is the root cause of cardiovascular disease, many cancers, type 2 diabetes, etc., etc. All the big killers. They are all at their root cause inflammatory disorders. How does that work? When the cell is locked out for getting more energy in, as the energy level that's stored in that cell starts to drop, the cell will start to reopen, but there's a lag time, and that lag time is when the inflammation occurs. Why does that occur? It occurs because the redox state in those cells starts to drop, the NAD plus to NADH ratio changes. That reduces the ability to resynthesize ATP from ADP plus PI. PI is inorganic phosphate. Inorganic phosphate that builds up in a cell binds to the pro-inflammatory cytokines. That's the switch that turns the inflammation on. It's phosphate. That's why you get inflamed acutely. And it's that acute inflammation. It's a phosphorylation, actually, of the GLUT4 transporter that locks it out. So that's why I'm saying acute inflammation is the switch that means you're going to store fat. And it also means you are inflamed, which invites heart disease, diabetes, etc., etc., etc. So that's why we need to avoid a diet which has a mixed macro profile in terms of fats and carbohydrates. So protein and fat together, fine. Carbohydrates and protein together, fine. And funnily enough, that's what you find in natural foods, isn't it? When you think about all the naturally available foods, animal products are high in protein and fat and very, very low in carbohydrate. Plant materials are very, very high in carbohydrate and fiber. Very, very low in fat relatively, especially saturated, obviously, and a bit of protein involved.
All right. So there we have it from the expert himself, master of physiology, Bart K, the nutrition science watchdog, currently on hiatus and parts unknown, but
Only on YouTube. Only on YouTube.
only on YouTube. Yeah. But did you guys have some comments you want to throw out about that? It was very sciencey, so let's give it the layman's twist.
I was just going to say, I mean, basically a comment. You know, it's amazing how many people would overconsume the calories compared to what they would typically need in a day. You know, pasta, ice cream, pizza, soda. You know, it'd be very easy for someone just to go over 2,500 calories. No problem.
Yeah, that's one of the problems with the high carb diet, you know, especially with processed carbohydrates, you know, like you said, pasta, or let's say, you know, donuts, cake, candy, soda, you know, all that stuff, even bread, you know, you can overeat that. Pizza, you can overeat that really easy, right? And sometimes you still don't feel satisfied, right?
Mm.
And we notice that very few people overeat on carnivore, right? And a lot of people, if they avoid like fat bombs.
I try to overeat on carnivore. It's nigh impossible.
Damn, it's hard to do.
But you know, it's not only what they eat. Then, you know, you've got beer, you've got wine, you've got, you know, again, sodas and milkshakes, and it's just
typically it is the mixture of both the fat and the carbs. That's what the Randle cycle talks about, and that's the dangerous part. But that's how I used to eat all the time. I had to have my carbs with my fat. No question about it.
Right.
balanced diet.
Right. That was the balance I had. That's right.
Everything in moderation, except when you're still hungry and you keep eating.
Right.
Well, I mean, I speak to people now, and you know, they'll say, "Oh, do you want this?" And I'll say, "Oh, look, no, I'm right. Thanks. I don't eat it, and this is the reasons why." You know, and then, "Oh, but you need a balanced diet," and then they'll tell me they've got high blood pressure, they've got cholesterol issues, they've got, you know, heart issues, you know, they're diabetics, and I'll say to them, "And all of this on a balanced diet?"
Right. Like people are panicked into eating worse, right? They're like, well, now I'm sick. I'm got high blood pressure, pre-diabetic. I don't feel good. And now I really have to buckle down and eat a balanced diet, right? I can't just have a piece of meat. I got to have all this extra crap.
Or less meat. They usually do less meat.
They do less meat.
They do.
Or
Yeah,
sides,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Better not eat that fat on the edge of the steak there.
So a few different things. One, just the order, just to remind people or tell people the order of the body breaking down, these different ways to get energy. So the first is alcohol. Your body tries to get rid of it because it can convert it into carbohydrates.
This is assuming you're drinking alcohol, right? Because you may not be. A lot of people choose not to, or they do it moderately.
Sober life, moderately, right? Exactly. But biologically, start to work with alcohol first because A, it's toxic, so it wants to get rid of it, and B, it's carbohydrate, so it can actually turn it into fuel and burn it. Which is why there's like low carb.
It's technically not a carbohydrate, but it comes with a lot of things. Like beer has alcohol and sugar in it. Wine has alcohol and sugar in it. Yeah.
Right, and so your body, get rid of the poison and use the carbohydrate or the sugar. Under that is carbohydrate, easier to break down into sugar. And then after that, you have fat. And after that, protein. And that's kind of the order of the ease that the body breaks down into, energy, basically. And to break down protein, you pretty much have to get rid of all your body fat first, which, good luck. You could be starving. You're going to have a hard time before that. The other thing is, touching on triglycerides and so on. That's a big worry about people going on carnivore. One of the first two things is what's going to happen to my cholesterol and what's going to happen to my triglycerides. And what ends up happening, again, not always, there are some little oddballs out there for whatever reason, but for most people, their triglycerides drop, usually within a 6-month period or so.
Yeah, people go carnivore and low carb, their triglyceride levels tend to go down. So when you do that lipid panel, everybody worries about LDL, but there's a much stronger correlation between high triglycerides and bad health than there is between high LDL and bad health.
And just to clarify, triglycerides is fat in the blood.
Yeah, it's fat and sugar, molecule, triglycerides.
Yeah.
Because the cells locked it out, because of the Randle cycle, it's locked it out.
It's been, you can't leave too much sugar floating around in the blood, so the liver converts it into something less toxic, but it's still a problem. Yep. So, we're trying to make the point that most people are eating a diet rich in carbohydrates and fats, and this is part of the problem, right? And of course, you could, as pointed out, you could eat a plant-based diet and not in a very low-fat diet and avoid the issue with the Randle cycle. But what is the problem that we see over and over again? People become nutritionally deficient on plant-based diets, right? And then, if we were watching somebody playing a clip of Vegan Gains, and his point is, look, if you're eating animals, you're torturing animals. So instead of torturing animals, go on a plant-based diet and then take all these pills to make up for all the nutrients you're not getting from meat. And we like to make the point that meat is the most nutritionally dense food on the planet. And plant-based foods are missing certain nutrients that you only get in meat, and the converse is not true. Because carbohydrates or plants are not essential. You do not have to eat them unless you have some sort of disease or deformity or something like that. But the average person never has to eat carbohydrates, much less plants.
And for me, it's about, health, overall health. You want to be healthy. And that usually involves feeling good, but also looking good. And that generally is, being of, lower weight. And then the other part is metabolics. And it's like, eating fat and carbs will put on fat, will make you fat and unhealthy and full of inflammation. So, okay, that's already out. Like that's already a no-go. Then it's like, okay, if I only eat plants or only eat carbs, then I'll be skinny, more or less, you know. But what is your metabolic health like? You know, and there are people and there's books, and we're not recommending anything, obviously, that people controlling their type 2 or type 1 diabetes by only eating carbs. And they just keep their blood sugars wicked high. That's a different strategy, and it actually works. Now, as far as nutrients and things like that, again, they have to supplement, and they just don't let their insulin actually drop or their blood sugars actually drop. But that doesn't sound very healthy either, you know. So then, like, what are you left with? You're left with keto or carnivore for nutrients, metabolic health, and physical appearance. To me, that seals the deal for me. And for me, I use the Randle cycle when I'm talking to people about keto or carnivore. Like if they really are interested in being healthy, because if they're really willing to listen to you and you're able to explain the Randle cycle, I don't see a way. Now they can choose to just be like, okay, I'll only eat plants. It's like, okay, but you're going to be nutrient deficient. And if you're okay with that, like, just no.
And you're okay with supplementing.
Right. If you're cool with supplementing, right. Exactly. But if they honestly are interested in being healthy as a human being, to me, it's only keto carnivore. There's really no other way. And I think it's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but it's like, we have the science. We know about the Randle cycle. Like, it should be to me, it's a done discussion with the Randle cycle until some other theory comes up, which if there's a new paper or new research, I'll be happy to read it. But that's my stance.
Well, and the thing is, you find out most vegans, like Vegan Gains, is just saying every time you eat meat, you're torturing an animal, which we know just isn't true. And then when you're in vegan groups, and I'm actually in some vegan groups, you find out that they're all over the place. They can't decide if a bivalve, like an oyster or a mussel or something, is a sentient being or not, whether it's conscious, whether it feels pain, or whether we have any business eating it. And that, you know, it's pretty soon it's how many angels dance on the head of the pin, and who's a real vegan and who's not. And please don't call yourself a vegan, and all this name calling and arguing and stuff like that. And they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But what they're trying to do is make their feelings our ethics, or their virtual signaling based on their feelings, and trying to get us to adopt their feelings as our rules to live by, which is really what's going on. It has nothing to do with nutrition.
And, you know, fat is energy, protein is for building.
Right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add, just because Justin and I are hogging it up?
Nah, that's perfect.
I wanted to show my prop. So I used to eat lots of brown rice and quinoa and stuff like that, and I still have this bag around. You know, because I used to buy the rice in these bags, and I was watching
because it was brown rice, right? So it was healthier than white rice.
Healthy brown rice, right?
It's a whole grain
from, you know, grown naturally in a third world country and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the low carb all stars international 2020 video, and Dr. Unwin is showing a chart that talks about glycemic load. And as it turns out, one serving of basmati rice is something equivalent to like 13 spoons of sugar, right? So you think you're eating healthy with something like this, but even if I asked, I'm sure if I asked most vegans, I'd say, you know, who knew anything about nutrition, I'd say, well, do you think it's healthy to eat 13 tablespoons of sugar? You know, is that a good idea? They'd probably say no.
Stop drinking soda, because they just think you're just drinking soda.
Right.
Yeah.
But not a hallmark like brown rice, right? Not a stable sort of food base that everybody thinks is healthy, right? So that you could be potentially eating really healthy and wind up with metabolic problems or, you know, carbohydrate toxicity or insulin toxicity just by eating foods like that, because they really are harder on your body than you would think they are, right?
Can I say, like, who would eat a serving of rice? You know, they eat a lot more than a serving of rice, and then
Sure.
they add other stuff to the rice as well. So it could be a curry, you know, which, so you got your protein, you got your fat in there as well, and then it's cooked in sesame seed oil, or whatever. You know what I mean. So it's not, they're actually consuming more than 13. Was it teaspoons or tablespoons, Tom?
I think it was tablespoons.
Tablespoons of sugar. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's right. Because a lot of times, especially like vegans or plant-based eaters, they're not going to just eat one little cup of rice. You know, it's not going to just be a little 4-ounce serving, 5-ounce serving.
It's a half plate.
It could be a complete plate a complete bed of rice with other stuff on top, right?
Yep.
And I think it's a mistake for people to envision that we evolved eating this way, because there was no fields of rice. There's no freaking bell peppers. You know, we weren't walking around macking even on avocados, you know, which I'm rather fond of, right? There was no sesame seed oil. And I'll be the first to admit, I like that flavor of sesame seed oil in my food.
Oh, yeah, I did too. Oh, yeah. I
But,
like
Likewise.
But it wasn't there. We didn't evolve to eat it. What we did evolve to eat are those big furry creatures there behind Ray, or maybe these ones on the wall back here. This is why we left all these drawings on, because that was our food. You know, we followed them around, we hunted them, and we ate them, and we left this massive record of that. Just ask anybody who studies archaeology and ask about spearheads, arrowheads. You know,
and even better than that, we hunted the fattiest animal we could get our hands on.
Yeah.
Any point in history, there's been proof of that. Gary Tobbs talks about that in his Good Calories, Bad Calories. Mickey Van Dor dives right into that about Man the Fat Hunter.
Amber O'Hearn, her lipivore hypothesis.
Or hypothesis, that's right.
Yeah. Right, it makes sense. We are fat-fueled beings, and we're meant to consume animal fat, not plant fats.
Now, saying this, we are an adaptable species, or else we would not have been here today.
Right.
We've learned to adapt to many conditions, including famine. So we have this ability to be able to eat grains because that's our famine adaptability part.
Well, we could tolerate a certain amount of it, right? But we certainly, if it's part of our everyday diet, it has a negative toll. And ask anybody who exhumes the skeletons of past generations. They'll tell you they can see where farming is. Yeah. The joints are deteriorated, the frames are crooked, the brain size actually gets smaller, and these people develop diseases like diabetes and arthritis and so on and so forth, which is unknown in meat cultures.
That's right.
And back then, if we were at a point where it was a bad hunt or, you know, some kind of issue where we couldn't get, you know, or get the meat and fat, then yeah, we were eating the plants, but we still weren't activating the Randle cycle because we weren't having plants and fat. You know, only in the modern world are we so easily able to combine the two. And that's where it's the chronic inflammation and chronic disease.
Right.
Which is amazing what you're saying, Justin, because if you think about the time period that we've actually been doing this, it's a very small amount of time period that we've been eating fat and carbs. We haven't been doing that for most of our evolution.
Yeah,
right?
the oldest known fossils that show us butchering animals, these are pre-human hominids, are taking stone tools and cutting the meat off of bones, go back 3.7 million years. But agriculture starts maybe 3,000 years ago in earnest. And that was in very, very localized areas. It wasn't like all humans were eating that way. Most humans were not eating that way. So there's a little bit of agriculture that might have started before that. But things like tubers and potatoes and stuff, they are all toxic. They all have to be detoxified. Even the modern strains of like beans and stuff that we eat are less toxic versions of their natural predecessors. And imagine trying to process, you know, cassava root or potatoes or beans or whatever before the use of fire. And once the use of fire goes back maybe 200,000 years. So how are they detoxifying all this supposed food we're going to find, right? Where did they get it? What were they eating? They certainly weren't eating potatoes and beans and stuff like that.
Exactly.
And weren't they given, you know, wasn't that typically for the slaves and for the poor people? You know, the rich people were always eating animal foods back then.
Right.
You know, the regals and.
Well, which makes sense. I mean, you know, the wealthier, and it still happens today. I mean, the wealthier people will eat the meat, and the not so.
Well, yeah, I mean, the third world suffers because they're eating lentils and rice, and they don't love lentils and rice.
It's cheap. It's cheap to produce.
Right, exactly. You know, if you want to help the third world, give them meat, give them goats, give them cows, give them milk. Like, that's the best thing we can do. And clean water. Yes, absolutely.
Clean water would be a big thing. That's right.
Yeah.
Right. And animals belong on the land. Animals prevent desertification of the land. You know, we need a variety of animals back on the land just like it was before. You know, a lot of people make it sound like, oh, you know, we can't have cows because they're going to ruin the ozone layer, or they're going to generate too many greenhouse gases. But we had vast plains full of bison roaming around. And prior to that, we had vast herds of mammoths and mastodons and rhinos, woolly rhinos and three-toed sloths and stuff all over the place. And that was the ecosystem. And that was the ecosystem we evolved in. And that's why we are meat eaters. That's why we live on the flesh of animals. It's just, we're humans, so we should do it humanely. You know, we shouldn't torture animals.
It's bad for the meat. You don't want tortured meat. Like, it's been proven. You don't want those hormones and stuff released. You know, that's a bad meat.
But a cow on pasture now has a good life. He's not worried about a wolf or a lion, you know, eating him or something, because they're usually protected. So they actually have a pretty chill life. And, you know, just because vegans can string together some horror film of animals being tortured all over the planet doesn't mean that's where your food comes from. And so we should support regenerative agriculture and the humane treatment of livestock. And we should want those animals to have a good quality life. But in the end, they're our food, and they've been our food since the beginning. So,
right.
Quite clearly, the enemies of meat are the enemy of mankind. So, anything else, gentlemen? Well, we'll wrap it up then. I just want to thank everybody for watching. Go ahead and leave your comments, even if you're vegan gains or some other unknown vegan.
We'll have you on the channel.
Yeah,
if you're vegan, come chat with us. We'll do a debate, discussion. We'll be nice, we promise.
Right. So if you want to make an argument for fake meat, or, you know, eating beans and rice and oats and everything else, because we all know human beings really didn't evolve to eat cereal, and we can only tolerate a small amount.
I would love to be proven different, you know?
Yeah, let's hear the evidence. Let's hear the studies, and look in the show notes for links to more about the Randle cycle, the video here with Bart and Dr. Baker on MeatRx, and contact us if you like. Come visit us on Facebook, come to Autistic Carnivores, maybe read some studies there with us. Maybe go join Australian Carnivores, a meat-based lifestyle. You could catch Ray as a coach on MeatRx. You could catch Justin, I think, still a coach on MeatRx.
Yeah, I'm also still a coach on MeatRx. Also at alloutlife.carnivore.
We'll put all that contact in the show notes, and give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. Please make sure you stay subscribed to all the content providers that you enjoy, because somehow people are mysteriously getting unsubscribed. So it's very important that you support your content providers. Until next time, eat some meat, feel better, and whatever you do,
Don't fall down the
Don't fall
carb
down the
hole.
carb hole.